you guys. A very easy recipe. It is fried tomatoes and fry bake, and this is like my all-time favorite meal. I don't eat fry bake often, so when I do, best believe I want it with tomatoes, fried tomatoes, not tomatoes sugar. It have to be, oh my god, it tastes so good. So I just wanted to show you guys the recipe. About a pound of tomatoes here. Off the top, and just cut it down, just like cut it into like these pieces here, and basically you just continue to do that. You see, when you cut it like this, it's easier to cook. It cooks down faster, so in that way it cooks in its own juice and you don't have to add any water to it. So I'm going to continue to cut the rest, and I'll see you guys in a bit. So I cut some onion here. I have half of a pepper, I have 2 pimentos, and I have about a pound of tomatoes here. I also have some green season, but if you have fresh bandania, you can omit the green season and just add the fresh bandania in. I have my pot here, it's on medium heat, and I'm going to add some olive oil to it. Just a little bit of olive oil. To the oil, I'm going to add in my onions, and I'm going to add in some pimento. So while the onions were sauteing with the pimentos, I just went ahead and added in some green seasoning. Now my green seasoning do have bandania, garlic and pepper, so I'm adding a little bit to that. And now what I'm doing, I'm just letting it fry up a bit and just going to add in my tomatoes and put on medium to low heat and cover. So now that I have my tomatoes mixed in with my onions, pimento and green seasoning, what I like to do here, I like to add a really good pinch of salt as well as some black pepper, and I also add in my hot pepper. At this stage you want to make sure and toss everything around, make sure it's fully well mixed. And I add in my hot pepper here just because I don't want to fry up my pepper in the oil, because then it gets too spicy. And as you guys can see, I'm adding in my pepper here. Give everything a really good mix again, and then put on low heat, cover, and it will cook in its own juices. So the tomatoes take about 10 minutes to like melt down. Once it's on low heat and it's covered, it will melt down really fast. At this stage, what you want to do is make sure and taste for salt. Add any additional salt, any seasoning that you want. I added a piece of golden ray butter to the end, and also I added a little more salt, and I just chopped up some shadow beni, aka bandania, and just throw it in at the end, as you guys can see it there. And this was done, and again the thickness is all up to you. So yeah. Okay, so on to the fry bake. What you're gonna need is 4 cups of flour, 1 1/4 tablespoon of baking powder, 2 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of yeast, 2 tablespoons of butter, room temperature. I use cooking, and you're gonna need 1 1/2 to 2 cups of water to mix everything. So before you add your wet ingredients, you want to make sure and combine the dry ingredients properly. Make sure the butter is broken down, as well as the sugar, the yeast, the baking powder. Make sure everything is fully mixed before you add in your wet ingredients, which is your water. So before I finish off my dough, I added a little bit of olive oil, and I'm just gonna cover it with a kitchen towel and leave it to rest for like 10 minutes, and then we get rolling. So to my pot, I'm just gonna add a very little bit of oil. If I need more, I'll definitely add, but I'm just adding a little bit to medium-high heat. So this next step is self-explanatory. What I'm doing, I'm just flouring my surface, and I'm going to divide my dough into smaller dough balls according to the size that you want your bake. I want my bake small, and the reason for that is if the bake is too thick and too big, it takes longer to cook, and most of the time it ends up not cooking properly. So if you make it a little smaller, it would, you know, it would cook faster. So yeah, and you don't have to make it too small. As you guys can see, mine is not like really small, but it's like medium size. But again, it's up to you and your preference. So now that we got our desired size, I am going to just form it back into like little dough balls, and just make sure that, you know, it is not perfectly wrong, but somewhat wrong. So yeah, and I don't really know how to explain this to you guys, but as you guys can see my motion, if it's your first time doing it and it doesn't come out wrong, that is totally fine. That is all right, you know, we live and we learn, so you just gotta keep going at it. I really don't know what technique is this that I'm doing, but again, over the years, this is just what works for me. Now it's time to roll out this bad boy. So I'm just flouring my surface, and again, you want to make sure you don't roll it too thick, not too thick but too thin. You don't want it too thin. So again, it's like a kind of, I can't really explain that, but you guys would know once you start to do it. You don't want it too thick and you don't want it too thin. And even though my dough balls was like so small, as you guys can see, my bake is like pretty big-ish. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue to roll this out to the desired thickness or thinness, and then I'm just gonna pat the excess flour off and throw it into the pot. So one of my ways that I check to see if the oil is hot, I take a little bit of flour and just like throw it into the oil, just like, you know, just sprinkle it, and once the flour starts to like bubble up and come to the surface, that's how I know my oil is hot. Now this part was really hard to record because this is hot oil and I'm trying to film. So yeah, this was the first one. It didn't like really come out too good, the first one though, because it kind of like fell in awkwardly when I threw it into the oil, but that is okay. It's still swelled and it'll taste really good. So I am, if you guys notice, I am throwing the oil onto the bake itself, and that is just to help it swell evenly. However, this one didn't swell too much because of how it, like, I tossed it in there. But you guys will see in the next one how beautiful it swelled. And I really recommend to try this particular bake recipe because it is so good. So yeah, as you guys can see, it's having a swelled time. Yeah, I'm gonna show you guys how the bake breaks. Like, it's so soft and it's flaky from like the cooking. I'm gonna give this a little taste test for you all. Dip in my tomatoes. This is really good. Now, I don't like my tomatoes sweet, so I don't add sugar. I like it kind of sour. But if you want, you can add a little bit of sugar to like make it sweeter. I personally don't really like it sweet. I like the sourness. This bake recipe, I got it from Foodie Nation. I'll leave the original recipe down below in the description box so you guys can go ahead and check it out. But I will definitely recommend this their recipe. It's so good. So yeah, I'm gonna finish my dinner and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye.